Good afternoon, everybody. This is the very last presentation of our politics class. I understand end terms have started, and I hope this presentation will distract you a little bit. So today we're going to discuss a person who is considered a political philosopher by our book, but who is more widely known as a great economist, Milton Friedman. So first of all, I will tell you a brief overview of the historical context of the 20th century. After that, I will talk about Friedman's biography. Thereafter, I will tell you about his work and then about his core ideas in economics and politics. Then I will share my personal opinion, and then we will come to the discussion questions. First of all, in the beginning of the 20th century, namely from 1914 to 1918, there was the First World War. In 1917, there was the October Revolution in Russia, which led to the end of Tsar's ruling and gave rise to Bolsheviks' power. In 1929, there was a huge stock market crash, which has led to Great Depression and caused a huge unemployment rate in the United States. In 1939, the Second World War has begun. For the United States, it resulted in expansion of industrial production, obligatory military service, and eventually in a reduction of the unemployment rate. Out of other interesting events, in 1959, Cuban Revolution conducted by Fidel Castro has ended and resulted in United States embargo against Cuba. And the other interesting event of this century is the fall of the Berlin Wall in 1989. Interestingly enough, Friedman lived through all of these events. So Milton was born in 1912 in Brooklyn, New York, and lived a very long life. He died in 2006 in California at the age of 94, and I was actually very surprised to see that because that's a very long life for that time. First of all, he was the youngest child and the only son of the family, having 3 older sisters. Both of Milton's parents were born in Carpathian Ruthenia, but they have immigrated to the United States, where they have actually met. Milton's family income was relatively low and very uncertain, but there was always food and a lot of caring and support. Friedman graduated from high school in 1928, a year before the stock market crash. In 1932, he graduated from Rutgers University, in which he was also awarded a competitive scholarship. For the rest, he paid for his education himself, taking regular students' jobs. At a university, he was mainly interested in math, but then he got an interest for economics and eventually majored in both. Also in 1933, he got his master's degree at the University of Chicago and a PhD in Columbia University. Also during his studies, he met a wonderful girl named Rose Director, and he fell in love with her, and they had been happily married till the day he died. She was also his partner and co-writer. Milton worked in various places, including National Bureau of Economic Research, U.S. Treasury departments working on wartime tax policy during Second World War, and at various universities, but I will not go into more detail about that as our main focus are his ideas. Also in 1976, he won a Nobel Prize in Economics, which is also very remarkable. Throughout his life, Milton wrote an enormous amount of books and articles, and discussing all of them would take much longer than 30 minutes, so here are the most important ones. As you can see, there is only one book connected to politics, which is the first one, and the rest one are about monetary policies. So next I will tell you about his ideas in economics, and then on politics. As I have already said, Milton got a Nobel Prize in economics. So why did he get that? He got it for his achievements in the field of consumption analysis, monetary history and theory, and for his demonstration of the complexity of stabilization policy. His main idea was that there should be a free market economy. He believed that the main tool for capitalist development is the economic freedom, which gives rise to all other freedoms in society. The free market economy has first of all meant no government intervention in economics. He believed that the intervention of the government blocked the factors that help the stabilization of economy. He believed that governmental intervention could work only in the short run, as unexpected influences of various factors could ruin the whole governmental plan. In Friedman's time, Keynesian economics was very popular and still is. But Friedman stated that using Keynes' model, the government can only influence the demand, financing it from its own capital, but it can guarantee the balance between the supply and demand, which is very important for a stable economy. Friedman was in favor of monetary policy, which is different from the Keynesian model, and he thought that low unemployment rate and stable prices were incompatible, so he also completely denied governmental programs which are pursuing reduction of unemployment rates. Friedman thought that 4 or 5% unemployment rate is really not a problem, as there is a sufficient amount of money to sustain those unemployed people. And that is pretty interesting because I'm an economics major, and in the classes we always assume that the unemployment rate is approximately 2%, and that's normal. So that's quite a difference. Eventually, it all boils down to the fact that apart from the fact that there should be no governmental intervention, market economy is actually a self-regulatory system, and all the disproportions and problems in economy are from the governmental intervention. And the money supply influences the amount of money spent by people. Higher money supply leads to a bigger output, which in turn leads to higher prices and higher inflation rates. And the inflation is very, very bad and has to be gone by all means, even if it means the reduction of social welfare. Finally, we come to the discussion of Friedman's political ideas. Without any doubt, Friedman's book Capitalism and Freedom was his biggest success. As I have already said, from Friedman's perspective, the economic freedom gives rise to all the other freedoms in society, obviously including the political freedom. Friedman was clearly a liberalist. He believed that people should have the maximum freedom in absolutely anything they do, as long as they don't interfere with the right of others and don't harm anybody. In such a way, Friedman thought that the government should be extremely limited, and in this case it would have only 3 roles. So first one is providing for national defense, so military. The second role of the government would be to protect individuals from the other individuals, thus justice, which is definitely necessary. Then the last role of the government is to create rules, the ones that individuals should follow to keep the peace in society. So, legislation. And the rest should be up to individuals, because all the development would go through the competitive market, while the government is still extremely limited. Now we'll briefly discuss his view on education. What I also thought was very interesting is his idea on education. He found education very important, and he thought that financing of education should be separated from the administration of schools. He proposed publicly financed vouchers for people to go for the education of their choice. This would make schools compete, thus develop, while parents are choosing a good school for their child. So again, it would create a competition, which is good for economy as well. Interestingly enough, in his book, Friedman states that the government should not make fair employment practices laws and should abolish right-to-work laws because they inhibit the freedom to employ someone based on whatever qualifications the employer wishes to use. So when it comes to social welfare, Friedman thinks that those kind of measures don't help people, the poor people, as much as we think they do. So instead of focusing on social welfare, he decides to focus on social security, that it's a bigger and better system. Lastly, and in his chapter on alleviation of poverty, he introduces a negative income tax to fix the issue of poverty, so basically giving everyone a guaranteed minimum income because he doesn't see the current measures of taxation effective at all. So basically, Friedman wants freedom everywhere, in every part of the life. So economic freedom, political freedom, any type of freedom, and the role of government, the sole role of government, is basically the protection of society. And finally, we're going to discuss Milton Friedman's legacy. First of all, Friedman had a very interesting view on economics, and Keynes did as well. So one of his legacies is the combination of those ideas of Friedman and Keynes, which also gave rise to new theories, which it is still discussed even nowadays. His idea on free markets also had a huge effect on the modern economies as well. Even the Swedish welfare state survived only because of free markets came to power. So this is definitely a thing that's still relevant even nowadays. Also, I'm afraid I didn't mention this in Milton's biography, but he was so-called father of Chicago School of Economics, which is a neoclassical school of economics that associated with the work of the faculty of University of Chicago. But eventually Milton does have a huge impact on the world of economics today, and especially with his ideas on the unemployment rate, on the monetary policies. I mean, the person who won a Nobel Prize, so his legacy is huge, and even in politics with his work. As for my personal opinion, I do agree with his ideas on unemployment rate that 4 or 5% is not that bad. I agree that market economy is self-regulatory, and I agree that all the problems in economy come from governmental intervention. So also with his idea on the very limited government. So what I do not completely agree with is that the inflation rate is incredibly bad and that we must reduce it even by reducing social welfare. No, I don't think it should work like that. But for the rest, I mainly agree with his ideas and I found him pretty interesting. And this is the end of the video, and thank you very much for listening, and now we will start with discussion questions. Thank you.